With our current weather conditions, it takes a real expert to create landscape that'll thrive. Riedel's Garden Center has the staff with the expertise of water requirements for plants, lawns, and landscapes that'll stand up to our changing weather conditions. With 25 years of hands-on experience, owner Darren Riedel will customize a landscape design and irrigation system to meet your expectations and our climate. It's recommended to protect your lawn using Fertilome products available at Riedel's Garden Center, an authorized dealer. Call or stop by Riedel's Garden Center today.
Hello, welcome to the Green and Growing Show. I am Margie Hammerschmidt, Extension Master Gardener with K-State Research and Extension. And today we are in the garden of a fellow Master Gardener, Dean Stramel. Welcome to the program, Dean.
Thanks for having me on, Margie.
Absolutely.
Today we're going to talk about planting spring bulbs, the bulbs that bloom in the spring. And I thought I'd start with just kind of showing some of the stuff that grows well around here. You have this really small bulbs. They're like the grape hyacinth. I just love grape hyacinth. They reproduce, they come up every spring, one of the first things in the spring. And everybody loves crocuses. Crocus is the first thing to pop through. A lot of times you see crocuses blooming through the snow. So crocuses are always that sign that spring is just about here. Daffodils, very hardy. You can plant daffodils and they'll come back year after year. A lot of people have big, beautiful beds of daffodils around town. My wife, Janet, just loves hyacinths. She says they have that beautiful, sweet smell in the spring. So today I'm going to be planting some hyacinths in a bed, and I'm going to surround the hyacinths with tulips, the standard. Now, notice there's different sizes, and generally, the bigger the bulb, the deeper you plant it. That's the rule. If it's a small bulb, you plant it really shallow. If it's a large bulb, you plant it deeper. And I don't know if you can see this. While I was working in my bed, this was a hyacinth that was in there last year. It bloomed real pretty. And this is the time of year bulbs are starting to form new roots. You see those two little roots? And so if you would dig in a bed of tulips or daffodils this time of year, you'd see that they're starting to do their thing for next year. They're starting to put their roots down so that next spring, when it warms up, they're ready to send those leaves up and go to work. So here's the bed I'm working in. This is a flower bed that I'm going to hopefully fill in with hyacinths and tulips. So with tulips, it's absolutely important to have good drainage. If you don't have good drainage, tulip bulbs, any bulb really, don't like sitting in wet soil. They'll rot, they get fungus, and you won't have a good show next spring. So good drainage is essential when you're planting any kind of a spring bulb. I do different from what you'll typically read. If I'm setting up a bed, like this whole bed, I intend this to have bulbs in it for the next several years, and so I dig extra deep. I've dug a hole here that's probably 6 inches deeper than where I'm going to plant my tulips. Why do I do that? Because to get that good drainage in the hole, I like to put 3 to 5 inches of sand. Now, if you don't want to go that much work, just be sure that you work lots of compost into your soil. So now I'm going to backfill this with my soil here that has lots of peat moss. I like using peat moss because I like the texture it gives the soil, and it takes a long time to decompose. So if you use peat moss, that organic is going to be in the soil quite a bit longer. So there you go. My sand below, some very loose soil with lots of organics. That's where we're going to plant our bulbs. So there's lots of interesting tricks. This is a gadget you can buy. It has usually they have inch marks so you can see how deep you're poking, and it's really clever. Oh, move the shovel, yeah. Okay, so you just shove it down in the soil, and when you bring it up, the soil comes with it. You have your hole for putting your bulbs in. And to release that soil, it has a little clever deal. You just push this, the soil falls out, you're ready for it. That's one option. You can buy it at just about any hardware store, any garden store. But since I've got my bed dug, I'm just going to start putting the bulbs in. Get my hyacinths. Okay. I'm going to put a row of hyacinths down the middle, and I just dig my hole down. I'm going to go about 6 inches deep. And I like to use bone meal. Bone meal, it's a slow release source of phosphorus, and phosphorus is important for root development. And so I like to just put a little couple tablespoons of phosphorus in the hole, loosen it up, mix it with the soil. Then I'm going to put my hyacinth bulb in. You always put them, the pointy tip up. That's about 6 inches deep. And then I'm going to cover it. And then on either side, I'm going to plant some tulips. So I dig my little hole. I put a couple tablespoons of bone meal in. I work the bone meal in. I place my tulip bulb and I cover it. And I'll do one more, and I think you got the point. Okay, dig my little hole. Add a little bone meal. Mix it in. And I'll put my tulip bulb in, and then I'll cover it with soil. And when I get back to this, I'm going to just work down this flower bed. I'm going to wait till some of the other things are done blooming. We have quite a bit of time yet. We have another month. Up to December, you can be planting bulbs. So I'm going to put a row of hyacinths down the middle with tulips front and back. So another important thing I didn't mention we need to is deer. If you live in a part of town or in the country where deer are around your yard, it may not be a good idea to plant tulips. To deer, tulips are like candy. In the spring when there's not much green around, those tender green leaves poking up, that's just, they go right to them, and deer really like tulips. So one suggestion, either do some research, do some reading, find how to keep deer out of your tulips, or I suggest plant daffodils. For some reason, deer don't seem to like chewing on daffodils. Now after I've got my bulbs in, I'm going to just water this good to get good contact between the soil and the bulbs, and then just be careful, don't overwater. It's supposed to rain a lot in the next couple days. You don't want your tulips to sit in wet water. And hopefully with my sand, it's going to drain away, or your good mixed in mulch. One common problem people do with tulips, in the spring, after those beautiful bulbs are done, the flowers are done, they want to cut back the foliage. Okay? Well, that's not a good idea. Yes, snip off the flowers, because that deadheading, it lets them put more energy into growing roots and storing energy. But after the bloom is done is when the tulip is collecting sunlight, doing photosynthesis, pushing carbohydrates back down into the bulb, which will provide next year's flower and next year's growth. So when the flowers are done, let the leaves go until they dry up. If you can just pull the leaf and stem out of the soil, it's dead, it's done. So try not to mow them off or cut them off right away in the spring. So that's planting bulbs. Oh, and then when you're done, I like to mulch with cedar chips. You can use chopped leaves, you can use straw, but you really need to cover this bed for the winter so to keep a more constant temperature and to keep freeze-thaw from heaving the bulbs out of the ground. Planting tulips, planting bulbs is fun. I enjoy doing it, and your efforts will be rewarded with a beautiful show of flowers next spring. This is Dean Stramel with Master Gardeners. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Dean, for joining us today on our program. I really appreciate you sharing those tips. Before we close today, I'd like to share a few Master Gardener timely topics, just some things that you can be doing in your garden right now. Cleaning garden tools before you put them away for the season will extend their life and keep your gardening life going easier. Before you put them away, remove any soil that's on the tools with either a stiff brush or with warm soapy water. Dry them thoroughly. Sharpen the edges of any cutting tools like shovels and spades. You can spread a thin coating of linseed oil on the tools, on the metal, to keep them from rusting. And when you store them, hang them to keep the cutting edge from rusting on the ground. That would dull the cutting edge, and it also can wick up moisture from the ground and cause rusting of that tool. When your garden is done for the season, remove any disease and bug-infested foliage. Destroy that. Do not put those into your compost bins. You can remove the dead foliage that's in your garden, or you can leave it there until spring. That will allow some beneficial insects to overwinter in your garden. Go ahead and spread some rotted manure or compost in the garden bed. You can just leave it there and let the winter freezes and thaws break that down, or you can till that into the soil, and this will improve your soil structure. In your flower beds, remove the iris, leaves, and the peony foliage completely and just destroy those. This will also help limit any spread of plant diseases. On your lawns, remove the fallen leaves, or if you have a mulching attachment with your lawnmower, go ahead and mulch those and drop them down into your soil. But leaving the full leaf on the grass will shade and suffocate the grass, and this will lead to grass dieback. Fall is a good time of year to plant trees and shrubs. Just remember to water them over the winter. And if you happen to have any leftover seeds that you didn't use this growing season, just store them in a cool, dry place, and they will remain viable for next growing season. Thank you again for joining us today. This was Dean Stramel and Margie Hammerschmidt, Extension Master Gardeners with K-State Research and Extension, reporting for Eagle TV.
With our current weather conditions, it takes a real expert to create landscape that'll thrive. Riedel's Garden Center has the staff with the expertise of water requirements for plants, lawns, and landscapes that'll stand up to our changing weather conditions. With 25 years of hands-on experience, owner Darren Riedel will customize a landscape design and irrigation system to meet your expectations and our climate. It's recommended to protect your lawn using Fertilome products available at Riedel's Garden Center, an authorized dealer. Call or stop by Riedel's Garden Center today.